Well, I'm just chilling at HRO this morning, literally and figuratively. It was about 56 degrees air temp when I pulled in early this morning, and I'm digging this cool overall July weather we've had here in our neck of the woods. We had a few days over 90, but we've had a lot of days with highs in the 70s, lows in the 50s, and the 10-day forecast is back to that cooler weather. We may even dip into the 40s one or two nights. It's making an easy July for the trout on the Housatonic. That's usually the month that gives them trouble and smooth sailing. So we're going to have another great holdover year. That's going to translate out into some really good trout fishing this fall. And I'd say spring 2015, I bet you're going to see quite a few 20-inch plus browns. We had a good batch of them. We had a good batch of 18 to 21-inch browns this spring, and some bigger ones than that. But you could probably add a couple inches on all those fish for next spring. So that's pretty cool. Rain Wednesday night has pushed the Housie up. You're not going to want to fish the Housie today. Saturday's still probably going to be more water than you want. We're at 23 change. It peaked out last night, probably around midnight. It's been kind of flat, just starting to drop a little. You're going to see a modest water drop by the end of the day, probably a few hundred CFS. I don't know if we'll be under 2,000 CFS by tomorrow morning, but we'll certainly be under 2,000 CFS before Sunday morning. And by Sunday morning, we should be, I would say, well under 2,000. Still going to be a good amount of water, probably over 1,500. That 1,500 to 2,000 CFS range is fishable, given a modicum of clarity. If you have at least 1.5 foot, 2 foot, and we should have at least that by then. What that means is you're going to want to fish the banks. Either swinging a streamer down and across while sending on or very near the bank and letting it swing into the bank, or nymphing upstream, again staying near the bank, and you would look for the seam between the fast and slow water and short line, high stick nymph like that. If you're indicator nymphing, you'd want to have your indicator fairly closely, not too much weight because you're going to be off on the edge. Fish will move into that shallower, off-color water to get out of the main current, and also with the water being not clear, they feel comfortable holding in shallow water. Typically in July and August, we're targeting smallmouth bass primarily on the Housatonic, and if we're into boats, we can also target pike. Trout have been mixing in with some of the smallmouth, depending on the sections. A lot of years, we're only fishing the slow, deep sections in the summer because those are the only sections with enough water to float. And those would be just, bass, smallmouth, the occasional largemouth, pike, even carp. When we have enough water and we're floating the trouty sections, if it's not too hot, sometimes trout will mix in. We've been seeing, by and large this summer, water temps in the 60s in the morning. And a lot of days it's been creeping into the 70s, of course. And some of the hotter days it probably reached even the mid-70s at the most. A lot of summer sees water temps routinely going into the 80s on a daily basis, which is great for the bass fishing, but it's rough on the trout, of course. This has been a super easy July for the trout. So it should translate into a lot of big trout this fall and a lot of big trout next spring. A couple other things I should mention. If you want to trout fish this weekend, your best bet locally would be the smaller brooks and streams, of which there are lots. Some are right near the shop. Some are, as much as a 20, 25-minute drive. And some qualify as small rivers. Most of them don't get fished much in the summer. And with that half-inch of rain we got locally Wednesday night, they got a lot more up in mass, which is why the Housie, came up a lot and lost clarity. It was just enough to kind of refresh the local streams and brooks. And combined with these cool temps, you have totally trout-friendly conditions. So we could send you to some smaller waters. You might want to bring a shorter rod with you. Sometime in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we'll see the beginning of the white flies. We haven't seen them yet. Some years we've already seen them by now. Some years they don't start till early August. It's a little hard to predict the date this year because that long, cold winter threw the hatch timetables off on everything. So my guess is the beginning of August is when we're going to see them, but it's possible we could see them earlier, but that would be my guess. One more thing before I call it quits on this video. The Cortland nymphing rods, the competition nymph rods, which have been in either out of stock or in short supply this year. We got a big batch coming in. They arrived at Cortland, I think, Wednesday this week, and we'll have them by Monday or sometime between Monday and Wednesday. In particular, the 10.5-3, which is, I think, the sweetheart for Euro nymphing out of that, has been mostly out of stock this year. We got a bunch coming in. Wouldn't be a bad idea to pre-order one if you want. Every batch we've gotten in is sold out like that. Also got some 10.5 4s coming in. The 4s are nice if you want an indicator nymph or you want to do indicators and Euro, and you can do wets. The 3s make a great dedicated Euro nymphing rod. The 3s and 4s both make good wet fly rods, and they also do a 9.5 too if you want a lighter rod for Euro nymphing with lighter tippets or on maybe smaller, tighter waters. This is Torrey for Housatonic River Outfitters. Hope to see some of you here this weekend.